Think we're golden here. Hello, it is Wednesday, February 22nd. It's about 4:07 Eastern PM, or 4:07 PM Eastern. I'm Ted. This is Josh. Welcome to the Crypto Flight Path. And today, something special happening. We're doing our live broadcast to not just to Twitch, but also to Facebook Live, Facebook and YouTube. So if you're catching us from any one of these places, please say hello in the chat. I'm full disclosure, I'm still a bit of a live streaming noob, and some of this stuff is some of these concepts, while I understand them intellectually, I have not experienced them to the fullest effect and all of their glory. So please yell in the chat if you see something that is weird, or if you can't hear one of us. Glad to get this kicked off. And for today's session, Josh and I decided that we want to talk more about something we've been talking about on previous broadcasts, and that is beginner's mind. And in a nutshell, we'll talk about why we're doing this project and a little bit of backstory, the goal that we're trying to achieve, and then what that looks like from a mission. Like what is the Crypto Flight Path's mission, and we'll unpack those things. So why don't I pause for a second, Josh, introduce yourself maybe, and tell us a little bit about what you think of this project and what you're hoping to get and what you're excited about more so.
Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate it, Ted. Yeah, so I've been in crypto investing for about 6 years now. My background was in commercial real estate. I was a commercial real estate broker for 10 years. Did that, then I left in 2017, traveled the world, went all the way down the rabbit hole with crypto. It's one of those things where I'd known about it for a while. I kind of blew it off. This is BS. Nobody's, this isn't real. This is just fake internet money. And then I was on a flight to Vegas to meet some friends, and I read a book called Digital Gold. And it was one of those things where, for some reason, whenever I read that book, I was on the plane. I was supposed to meet my friends at a pool, like a day party, and I got to the hotel room and I finished the book. I didn't even go to the day party because it just all of a sudden clicked. And I think it was a combination of like everything I'd read before and seen. And in my mind, I just went, "Oh my God, this is what that is. This is what Bitcoin is. This is amazing." And so, as I exited the real estate world, I looked at Bitcoin from a real estate mindset as something that this is Michigan Avenue in 1900. I don't know what's going to be built on top of it, but I know the underlying base layer money is, or protocol, is valuable. And so I spent the year traveling, learning about the different cryptocurrencies, learning about Bitcoin, really building conviction in the asset. And I've been doing that ever since. I've invested personally. I run a fund for my family. We've invested in multiple funds and projects over the past few years, buy and sell crypto for an income. So this is what I do full time. I love the space. I love the action. Part of what Ted and I are trying to accomplish is we want to be a place where the normal person can come and learn about Bitcoin and crypto. There's so much stuff online. It's overwhelming for even me, somebody that's been in the space for 6 years. We have a pretty good understanding about basically everything in crypto, but there's so much noise out there. There's so much garbage, there's so much scams, there's so much misinformation about what this actually is and how it can actually benefit people. The passion that I have for this is I've seen what it can do in my own life from a personal sovereign spectrum, like from that perspective of how you can take this technology and free yourself financially, and also kind of exit the system that exists today. Not all the way. I mean, you got to pay bills, you got to live.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. But it's kind of a hedge against what's going on in some of the world today. And, I think what we're trying to do is we want to kind of take away some of the noise and just tell people why this matters to them. Why should you care about Bitcoin? Why should you care about crypto? What does it matter to you? Right? And so what I always say is, I don't care if anybody buys Bitcoin or crypto ever. It doesn't matter to me. It's irrelevant. What is relevant is if you learn about Bitcoin and crypto, it forces you to learn about our money and how it works. And I think that's the most important thing. I think if people understood how our money actually worked, they take what's going on in the world a lot more seriously. So that's kind of my 2 minute spiel and on why I think this is important and what we're trying to do and how I think that we can help people. And I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, man, thanks for sharing. And you talked about the book Digital Gold and how there was a moment when something clicked and you realized what this thing is. I mean, the thing at the time was Bitcoin, and I had a similar type of experience. Uh, Rewind the clock back to say 2000, was it 2004 or 2005? It was probably late 2005 when I don't remember what happened in my life that caused this, but what I remember very vividly is that I got really interested in Apple stock and Adobe stock and Red Hat Linux. I'd been a sysadmin. I'd worked for a bunch of defense contracting firms. Used to live up in the Northern Virginia area of Washington D.C. Worked for some of the infamous Beltway Bandit defense contracting firms that are thriving today with the ever expanding budgets that get passed by the government, which is a whole another can of worms. But there's a tie-in here with like how money works and where it comes from. But what I'm trying to say is that was really the genesis for me personally when I got interested in stocks, and I'd always been a PC user. I'd always built my own PCs, but then I started using Apple equipment to do video editing. So I was producing video and had been making music for a long time. And I finally had saved up enough money to buy my first Apple computer. And I was so excited about it at the time. I was just as interested in the tech and the hardware as I was in doing the creative work with those things. And I was like, man, I ought to buy stock in this company because it's something that I had heard people say, and I finally understood what they might have been what they might have been experiencing in that moment. But why is this relevant? It's just that's when it didn't make any sense to me initially why I would take my hard-earned cash and buy a share of stock with it when the stock price could go up or down, and it didn't make any sense to me why. And fast forward from that about between 7 and 9 years from there, I got interested in trading when I heard about this Steve Nissen's Candlestick Course book, and I thought, I really need to do something about like the point I'm trying to get to here is that I'd gotten interested in investing, and I had my eyes on these three stocks, but I didn't understand anything about the stock market. I was just going to say it. I was kind of a broke musician type. I had an IT job that during that time, so I wasn't entirely broke, but I worked a lot and made music, and I didn't really like put any effort or energy into understanding where our money came from, like why were the dollars important, and like what taxation was and the function that it plays in society or in our monetary system, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, fast forward, got interested in day trading, and then I don't know if this is just pure luck or coincidence or like an alignment of the stars, I met a really successful commodities futures trader. I didn't know this when I first met him. I became friends with him by way of our mutual interest in cars and doing some car events with some other friends. And I began talking with this guy because he was just really polite, and I was making conversation with him one day, and he asked me what I was doing, and I don't know why I said this out loud because I just said I'm trying to learn how to day trade, and he kind of chuckled and threw his head back, and he's like, we should talk. And this began a whole like chain of events over about a 2-year period that I ended up working at this hedge fund with this guy, and that's when I really got my eyelids pulled, like in Clockwork Orange, spoiler alert, the eyelids pulled back, and I had to, as part of the work that I was going to be doing, I had to learn and understand, like at the most basic level, like how the monetary system functioned, the difference between things like monetary policy and fiscal policy, which we won't bore anyone with here today, or we'll try not to bore you with any of those things initially. But the point I'm trying to get to is that during the process, because of my IT career background for like 10 or 15 years at that point, it was my job to look at things to trade, like how do we trade technology stocks initially, and then when we learned about blockchain and this idea of a zero knowledge proof, and that Bitcoin could, or this concept that a blockchain could tell you could verify ownership of this content digitally without revealing the contents of it, was something that really like zapped me in right between the eyes. This idea of a zero knowledge proof, which is a really technical concept, but it's not. I mean, you don't have to know the tech to understand what it really means. And then secondary, when I learned about Bitcoin, initially I didn't understand it at all. I was just like, man, this is way too complicated. There's all this cryptography, and then. But as I started to go down the rabbit hole and look at look at Bitcoin, and then look at the ecosystem of other, I guess we'll call them the altcoins, or everything else in crypto. Our thesis was that Bitcoin and then everything else was crypto, which you hear a lot of people talk about on Twitter today. There's Bitcoin and there's everything else. That's not the point of what I'm trying to communicate here, but that's how I got down the rabbit hole with looking at like what it was, how it functioned. Initially from a financial trading perspective, but then circling back around to the very beginning with what you were saying, Josh, about when you read this book and you started to like really understand what was going on. A similar type thing. This was 2016, really, right as this was pre 2017, like to the moon for Bitcoin the first time. To hit 17 or 20,000. So. That's how I began my journey, and to like take us on to the next like part of our discussion, like what are we trying to accomplish, and I thought what you articulated about our goal is to help people that aren't familiar, don't have they're not technical, they're not particularly interested in becoming versed in technical concepts like SHA-256 hashing algorithms and all this other nonsense that you hear about. The bottom line is, I think our goal is to help people that are non-technical learn about and become comfortable with the concepts in the crypto universe, whether it's Bitcoin or it's Ethereum or it's an NFT of some kind. If it's like what is a crypto wallet, and helping people get over the initial resistance they might feel. It's usually rooted in misunderstanding. We want to help people blast right through these barriers to keeping them from participating in the crypto ecosystem in any way, shape, or form, and bring this to as many, bring knowledge and understanding, and be a source of information, a source of education, a source of help, and help keep people focused on the good that this as part of the digital revolution takes hold and continues to engulf the earth. The digitization of our money and being able to do things that we never could do in the past, in monetary terms, and like the benefits for us as people in society, I think are it's too important for us to not try and do this, I would say. So I'll pause there. Is there anything that you would add or clarify or say around like what our goals are here?
No, yeah, it's always fun to hear people's stories too, because I think, what we want to do is we want to help you get to that aha moment where you've been paying attention, you know what this is, and there's nothing that Ted or I can say to you that's going to make you come to the understanding of, oh my God, that's what this is. Just imagine there's a door, right? There's a huge line of people. On the other side of the door, there's all these people making money. They're building things. They're all excited about this thing. And what we want to be is we want to be the people, the greeters at the door, that kind of get you to take the step to go through. And once you're through, we want to be a source of information that you can rely on, a place where you can go to get information that's just information. It's not opinions. It's not, we'll have opinions on stuff, but the goal is to onboard people into crypto. And the way you do that, in my opinion, and I think Ted, you agree, is, people have to understand why they should care, right? Bitcoin's this new emerging technology that, is going to change the world. Okay, great. Like, why do I care? And our goal is to help you get to a point where you realize, okay, this is what that is. Here's how it affects me. This is why I should care or not care. At the end of the day, you might not care at all. You might think this whole thing is a joke and it's silly, and that's okay, right? It's not for everybody. It's a new technology. It's 13 years old now. But I think what we really want to try to help people do is say, okay, look, this thing isn't this crazy new thing that's complete garbage and is going to fall apart tomorrow. We want to help you realize how this can affect your life, how it can impact your life, how you can implement some of the strategies that we talk about to benefit yourself financially. And then also, again, there's so much more once you understand what's going on, especially with the money, and the way the money works. It's mind blowing. It's hard to put into words right now, but our goal is to be that first step for you to kind of say, okay, Josh and Ted, they're normal guys. They're no different than me or anybody else I know. We're just getting on the internet and streaming and telling you everything we think that's important that you should know about this stuff. And then you can go out, we'll give you resources and you learn for yourself, right? Like, that's our goal. So I think that's generally kind of what we're thinking, right, Ted? Like, there's so much to cover and it's overwhelming, when you first enter the space, but in reality, this stuff isn't rocket science. It's not Chinese. It's not Mandarin. It's not going to take you 5 years to learn. If you put in, an hour a week for a month, you'll get you'll get the gist. It's, if I can do it, I'm not a technical person at all. I use Bitcoin and cryptocurrency to invest. Can I do technical stuff? Sure. But that's not my expertise. So I think that's what we're trying to accomplish here.
I like what you just said about you're not technical and you're doing it anyway, and you're approaching this from like a perspective that's not technical. I'm happy to report that I'm somewhat of a recovering IT nerd. I am wholly guilty in my storied career, even before I began working in tech, when I was basically a musician. I mean, I worked jobs, but my identity as a person is that I'm a music maker first, and I'm going to leverage technology or leverage the technology of the day to try to make music and make a living doing that. But until then, I have to work and get paid so that I can put a roof over my head, especially after I left home and had to go out and be an individual of voting age and provide for myself, and not understanding money at all, but somehow managed to, I look back now and I'm like, man, how on earth did you make it as far as you did in that first 6 years of just to put it in perspective, I was only halfway through my senior year in high school when I turned 18. So I just packed my stuff and left because I had this burning desire to go out and be in the world, even though I didn't understand half of what was going on. I knew some basic things though. I knew I wanted to play music. I wanted to be I wanted to be in Metallica, and I wanted to play rock and roll guitar music, even though I was a bass player at the time. And I knew that college was not the thing that I needed to be doing. I was terrified of it because I thought, well, what am I going to do if I don't work for those? If I spend 4 years in school, I could be working and saving money. So one thing I had going for me, even though I wasn't really the sharpest knife in the drawer academically speaking, is I knew how to work and be part of the labor force, for better, for worse. And this, where I'm going, I guess I should veer this back on track here a little bit, but where I'm going with this is that as my music career progressed, I was way fascinated with the technology, especially with the digitization of home recording tools. And this was right in tandem with Apple revolutionizing, or destroying the music business, depending on which side of the coin you're on there, pun intended. because we're talking about crypto in general here, but watching like the price of music go down, and just go down and down and down and down, and people trying to make, and it ended up, setting that career goal aside because it was just the competition. And the reality is that if our band was better, and more likable, and our music was so, like much better, we might have had a chance. But we were competing in the real world for people's attention, and we're better people, and that's just life. But the point I'm trying to get to is that I was way too focused on the tech. And one of the things working at the fund that really helped me like realize this was when, at the end of the day, the team that I was supporting, the trading team, were like, they would say things like, we are chart agnostic. We don't care what the instrument is. It could be Beanie Babies, or it could be crude oil futures, or it could be Bitcoin, or it could be Tesla stock. We don't care. We're going to trade the chart because at the end of the day, we live in the United States. We have to pay our taxes in US dollars, and because we get paid in US dollars, and we have to earn US dollars for our income. So this idea that the technology was somehow like that important doesn't really matter for the everyday person. And what does this mean for our mission and what we're trying to accomplish is that I think that what we're going to try to do first is try and help as many people who don't know what crypto is today learn what crypto is in simple terms. There's a good saying is that I don't need to know how the watch is made. I just want to know what time it is. And I'll argue that there's a whole country and a whole world full of people. I mean, we're in the US here, but crypto is borderless and it's global. And there are people all over the earth that don't have any interest in tech, won't learn anything, and will probably be very like resistant to learning about the tech. They just know that this is going to help them in their life in some way, and that's what I'm trying to get to. We want to help people, as many people, learn what crypto is. I would argue that the next step going from there, once they know what it is and they understand how they can benefit from it, they make their first purchase. I mean, everybody's got their first time they actually bought crypto for the first time. And so helping people learn how to do it, buy crypto, do it safely and securely, and understand like the landscape. Like in the same way that you wouldn't drive a car necessarily today without putting on your seatbelt, or you would look both ways before you cross the street. Before you make a crypto purchase, there are a few things that we think, and we can share from our experience helping other people and helping ourselves, make it very easy and very safe and a really positive experience that first time. And then going on from there, thinking in terms of longer time horizons. The one thing I think the average person doesn't really think about, because I didn't think about this for a long time, was the idea of being able to invest. And if I could go back in time, I would slap myself across the face back in that 2004, 2005 area and say, those 5 shares of Apple stock that you had for like $40 a piece, you should have kept them, because I wasn't thinking that way. But one thing I would like to like leave behind on humanity, perhaps as as a legacy mindset goal that I have for myself, is to help people understand have a better understanding of like how investing can work for them. And I think the crypto ecosystem, the crypto universe opens up so much opportunity, things that 10 years ago that I would have never dreamed of. But thinking back to when I was a teenager, and there was no such thing as logging onto the internet and then buying stock. Back in the old days, using E-Trade and paying $9.95 for commission to buy one share of stock. So, and then last on this like menu of things that we think from a mission perspective would be to talk about like trading, which isn't for everybody, but it's something that I'm personally interested in. I have exposure to like what trading is in various contexts. Same thing with you, Josh. And like for some of our some of the people that we end up reaching, I think there's an opportunity to help them like take steps in the direction of trading for income, perhaps, and being able to make a living doing something that they're interested in. And like circling back around, I mean that's why like why we exist. I think I'm really excited about being able to learn more about what people are experiencing, the things that are keeping them from participating, and trying to create content and be a resource and do things like this to demonstrate just how easy it is to get involved, and more importantly, like what's in it for you as a participant. And that is really exciting to me.
Yeah, and part of how we do that, right, is we've been in the space for a long time. We understand the space, but part of what we're going to do is we're going to point you in the direction of people that are much smarter than us. So you don't have to listen to Ted or I. Our goal is to show you through the door, and we're going to give you the right resources to do that. So we want to act as an aggregator and a collector of resources to point you in the right direction and kind of clear some of these things up. So as we get into this and build content, figure out what people are struggling with, we can point you in the right directions. Because if you get on YouTube today and type in crypto, good luck. I mean, that's just, or any of these other platforms or TikTok or wherever, and here's something that I think is really interesting. I think there's a huge percentage of the people that are over 40 that just haven't had a reason to care, right? And so, like, when you look at somebody like Ted or I, you're like, okay, great. These guys have careers, have had careers. They're not 20-year-old TikTokers. Nothing against that, by the way. Like, that's great. I love that people are learning like that. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a whole group of people who I feel like that are our target demographic that, look, you're not trying to buy Lambos and, $10 million mansions. What you're trying to do is figure out what the hell cryptocurrency is and why you should care. And I think that that's the demographic that we really want to help, because this isn't some mystery box that, nobody can understand, or only kids that are good with computers get. This stuff is unbelievably simple. It's getting easier every day. And I think that's who we can really help.
Boy, you're really like a couple of things that really jumped out at me there is that it there is a lot of noise in some, like depending on your perspective. If you just go to Google and type in cryptocurrency or um, just crypto, you will get inundated with a lot of things that don't make any sense. And yes, there are a lot of loud voices that talk about which Lambo they're going to buy, or it doesn't even matter what they're saying. There's a lot of loud voices and a lot of exuberance and things that um, may not make very much sense. But I think the other thing that like resonates when I hear you talk about like us just being like regular guys, and trying to like help others. The thing I'm trying to get to here is that the like the real thing that's become, as I've gotten a little bit older, the idea of time freedom. I'm not trying to sound like we're trying to sell a bag, like a what's the saying? We're not trying to like put forth a bill of goods to sell that so we can go off and retire and never like do anything ever again. But this idea of time freedom and being able to provide for yourself in a way that gives you more time to enjoy your family, your traveling, like the things that you want to do in life. And I'm not knocking working for a living. I mean, I work for a living today, and I started working. I did my first job when I was 14. I had to work all summer. I had to work for 3 months just to get I got my very first paycheck when I was 14. Paycheck is the wrong word. I earned my very first money that I worked for myself when I was 14. It took me 90 days to collect. I helped my neighbor who was a retired firefighter who was painting houses, and all I did was schlep ladders and carry paint and help him move things around. I was a gopher, go for this, go for that. I made $250 when I was 14 years old, and it felt like I was rich. And the point is that I cherished that money. But as I got older, and the harder I felt like I had to work to earn money to facilitate my living, the time that it was taking just started to it really like was like this thing in my mind, like, man, I've got to figure this out. And this was a parallel thread as I like first got interested in stocks, and this idea of investing. Something someone once said is that, you know, you got to find a way to put the money that you earn to work for you, and think of your dollars. And, you know, in the US here, our US dollars we can turn them into employees and send them out the door to go work while we're doing other things. And those are concepts that I think still, well, I don't think, I know it resonates with me today, this idea of putting money to work. And all of this like innovation and advancement and things in the crypto sphere that we happen to be very interested in. There's tons of opportunity there. And I think we can help expose others to these things in a meaningful and like clear and safe way that helps everybody involved. So anyway, I could prattle on for hours about this, but
a couple things. One, the first thing is that, you know, Ted and I are learning too. And as you get in this space, what you realize is that you're going to learn. It never stops with this. And that's the same way with life in general, right? You should never stop learning. So this process is ongoing forever. So, you know, we're not going to know the questions or, you know, the answers to every question that people have. And that's okay. You know, our objective isn't to be these omni-knowing crypto people. We're not, right? We make mistakes. We're normal human beings. We're trying to figure all this stuff out too. But, you know, I've got a ton of experience in investing in crypto. Ted's got a ton of experience trading. I think combined, you know, we can really shed light on what's going on in this industry. And the second thing is, you touched on something that, you know, we were talking about, kind of beginner's mindset and why you should care. Okay. The simplest reason, and I can sum all this up very quickly, as to why anybody should care about crypto at all, Bitcoin specifically, because you spend 8 to 10 hours a day working. In exchange for labor, you get US dollars, and US dollars are becoming worthless more so every day. And that sounds crazy, right? Like the dollar's worthless. And what I mean by that is, if you look at a graph since 1971 or 72, the purchasing power of a dollar has gone down every year. And there's specific numbers we can give you guys, but the general point is this: your time is becoming worth less. And how do you preserve that labor? Okay. You preserve it by buying hard assets. And Bitcoin, we believe, is the hardest asset on the planet. Okay. That's why you should care. That's why you should get, that's why you should learn. That's why you should open that door and go through the other side. Even if you don't do anything, that's okay. But what's really important to me is people dedicate their entire lives to their professions, and they earn dollars that are inflated away into infinity, and nobody seems to care. Well, you know, my time's important. It doesn't matter if it's worth $1 million an hour or 10 grand an hour or $100 an hour. It's still important to me, right? And so if I earned $100 an hour or $10 an hour, I want to take some of that capital that I don't pay bills with and put it into an asset that preserves the purchasing power of that labor. Forget the dollar or currency. I exchange labor, okay? And so I don't want that exchange of labor and time to become printed away at the will of some politician. And that's why anybody that's listening to this, or anybody that follows us, you know, that's why you should care. This is an option. This is a new asset class. Bitcoin specifically is something, and there are other assets that are worth looking at, right? This isn't a Bitcoin specific or Bitcoin maxi channel. You know, I think those guys, I laugh at Ted all the time. I think they got it 90% right. And their arguments against fiat currency are phenomenal. When they go against other digital currencies, I think they just need to leave it alone. Like, let the market decide, whatever. And we'll get into all that stuff too, because it's a fun topic. And I love the maxis. I really do. Like, I learned a lot from them. But as you progress through this journey, you know, again, we can help you with all that stuff and learn. But the point is, look, you should care because your time is worth something. And I don't care if you think it is or not, you know, because most people don't believe their time is worth anything, believe it or not, right? That's why most people work jobs they hate for 40 years, because if they thought their time was worth anything, they wouldn't do that shit, right? So I think that's where we can really say it from a beginner's mindset. Let's light a fire under somebody's ass and say, look, this is why you should look at this. This has the potential to you know, preserve your labor over time. And we can explain why that is. And then you can make a decision and you can learn for yourself whether you believe that's true or not. But that's something for me, Ted, that like I am passionate about. And I do want to help people understand that, because I hate seeing, I have friends and family that work jobs they hate. And I know they know they hate it, but they don't know what to do. Right. And so what this does is what it did for me is like it gave me hope. It was like, oh my God, there's something else out there that I can do, that I can dedicate 10 hours a day to in exchange for something that I can put into and hold this asset myself. The bank doesn't hold it. I hold it. Nobody controls it but me. It's phenomenal. And that's what I'm passionate about. And that's what I want to help people understand.
I appreciate you sharing that, and the fire and the passion. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I pulled up on the browser here just like Google. You can Google for U.S. dollar purchasing power, and you can find something like this. But basically, the story we're trying to tell here is that if you look back through time, the the amount of things that you could buy with a dollar has gone down over time. And forget about the reasons for that just on the surface now today. And one of the things I want to leave everyone with is that the like this idea of that you so well articulated, Josh, is that that we are trading our time for money. In this case, U.S. dollars. We get paid in dollars. Okay, I get paid in dollars, and every year that goes by, the things that I can acquire, things that I need, and then things that I want, things I need like shelter and food and water, and things I want, like maybe I want to upgrade this T-shirt. I mean, I would argue that this is a need, but if I want to willy nilly just go to the store and say, or go on Amazon these days and just pick out a new shirt. The point I'm trying to illustrate here is that over time, it's taken more and more and more dollars to get the same things. And this is not an easy concept initially to get your mind around. It's a little bit upsetting. I mean, I remember thinking when I was a lot younger, listening to President Reagan talk about the national debt or the deficits and all this and that, how much trouble we were in as a child. I had no idea what he was really talking about. But here's what I did know is that it sounded scary, and I was scared. And I remember that very vividly. And that undercurrent, that has been an undercurrent in my life as I thought about, like, golly, at one point I had a full-time job and two side gigs, a consulting gig, and then this other, like, basically busy work thing. It wasn't even consulting. It was just me trading like raw hours for dollars because I was terrified that I was never going to be able to retire. This was about 11 years ago. So I calmed down a little bit since then. But what I'm trying to illustrate here is that one of the things that is driving Josh and I, and is this idea that we need to be taking our dollars and acquiring hard assets. And one of the things that we'll talk about more is the idea that crypto assets some of them can be considered hard assets. The best example of that is Bitcoin that we know of today. We don't have to talk about that any further than just to say this concept. We'll revisit this concept of woven into everything that we try and convey and share and teach around taking your hard-earned dollars or your euros if you're overseas in Europe, or if you're in Japan, your yen, and putting it to work to offset this phenomenon of like this continuously eroded purchasing power of our money today. So that in a nutshell.
I think that is the big thing that people might not be able to articulate in their mind, but they feel it. That's why everybody's so stressed right now. Like, what is going on with the money? Like, that's the $1 trillion question, right? And from our perspective, like, there's this idea that like Bitcoin are anarchist and all these stuff, and they want to topple governments. That's not what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do from our perspective is we're trying to teach individuals how to take their time and their hard-earned dollars or yen or whatever they earn in fiat currencies and invest in something that has the potential to increase their purchasing power over time. That's it. That's all we're trying to do. They're not trying to do anything crazy. Most Bitcoiners aren't anarchists. We're not, whatever you hear on TV or, that's just not true. We're just trying to live in the system that's been created that we had nothing to do with, but we have to survive in. And the way you do that in some form or fashion, Bitcoin can help you with that. So that's the general gist. And we'll go into a lot more detail about all that stuff. But I think we did a good job today talking about kind of our story, why we're here, why we believe this is important, why we think people should think it's important. And then in future episodes, we can go over different strategies, how we're going to do this. But I think, again, I want to reiterate that you and I are here learning too. And we've decided to put ourselves out there. We've decided to go live almost every day, right? It's not going to be every day. There's stuff that comes up, but over time, we want to find people that are curious about crypto, that want to learn about it, that want to understand. And we're going to do everything we can to help you understand, point you in the right directions. We're going to have content that comes out on a regular basis. I really feel that there's a need in the market for people, normal people, just to learn about what this is and decide for themselves if it's a good investment.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for articulating that as well. So we'll wrap it up. This is actually our third week in a row of live streaming every day, Monday through Friday. So we're going to do I'm going to do my darndest to make sure that it's never my fault that we don't stream at least one time a day per week, Monday through Friday.
It'll mostly always be my fault that if we don't do it.
Well, it can be your fault. I'll take the blame. Whatever. It doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that we're developing a cadence and a rhythm, and we want to show up at a minimum and try to be helpful. And by helping others, we can also learn new things. So, with all that said, thanks everybody for joining. If you're catching this after the broadcast, if you're on YouTube, just subscribe to the channel. I'll do the cliche, hit the like button or hit the like. So the smash the bell for is that how they say it? Smash the bell for notifications. Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you're catching us on Twitch, just follow our Twitch channel, and we're getting a Facebook page spun up, and then the cryptoflightpath.tv, or it's www.cryptoflightpath.tv is the website that we're still building out. So if you go there and there's nothing there, don't get mad just yet. We're gonna continue to build that out. But I think just to reiterate, really excited. Hope to bring a lot of folks into the know and get them onboarded and active, and ideally taking control and being in charge of improving their life in some way. So with that, we'll wrap it up, and thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Josh. We will see you in the next one.